Welcome back to Safe Space, where life questions are talked about from Christian perspectives. So we covered why some couldn't deal with this vulnerability of God or God being as our friend, because I think growing up, maybe in the older generation, this friendship thing is just too foreign, nobody talk about it, and or maybe too risky to venture into. God want to share his burden with us. And yet, to the younger generation, such as the millennials today, we swing to the other extreme. We have youngsters who call Jesus my dude, my homie. Songs has been written about Jesus as our best friend. We make no apology about it. We sing, we crying, we say, Jesus, you're my best friend. I'll forever, follow you. Do you see the pendulum swing to the other side in these recent years as to how our attitude has changed in approaching God, whom maybe the older generation see as perfect, untouchable? And how do we then strike a balance between honoring God as that God who can choose to strike us if he wants to, but thankfully he doesn't, and with him as our friend, whom we can come anytime we want to?
Let me assure you on Romans 8:1, there's now no more condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus.
Praise the Lord.
So if you're in Christ, don't worry about the striking you thing. If he does, it'll be for discipline.
Oh, that settles a lot of my issue, Doctor.
I think because God is God in such a big reality, church history seems to see the church swinging from one extreme to another. Maybe there was a time when we were concerned for right thinking about God, so getting the right theology about God is very important, the right doctrinal statements about God. But deep in our heart, we cannot hug a doctrine. I mean, we need to relate to a person.
Yes.
So maybe earlier on, the part of the charismatic renewal, or in more recent times, the songs would seem to reflect maybe a reaction to this. I'm just guessing that away from just relating to God as a definition, to God as a person. So a newer slate of songs that talks about a more direct connection with Him and expressing my feelings about how I feel about Him. But I think that is understandable, but even our feelings about Him must be based on right thinking about Him. That we shouldn't posit a dichotomy between right thinking and right connection. So who is this God that you want to connect to? What is He like? So the right thinking, biblical reflection will still make sure that we connect to the right God, not the God of our imagination.
Correct.
The right God. So we need both. I'm thinking the best music should be doctrinally sound but emotionally connecting at the same time. Why can't we have both? Why must it be either dry and doctrinal or very emotional but of suspect theology? Why must it be like that? Why can't we have? And there are good songs out there now which are theologically sound and also helping us to connect with God. But connecting to a God who is both immanent and transcendent is always a challenge. A God who is transcendent up there, Isaiah 6, rock the temple, immanent, the prodigal son's father who hugs him and even when you stink, and that they are both the same, different pictures of God. It's very hard to hold this in tension. I grapple with metaphors. I think of some of my professors in seminary. There's one guy who had 2 doctorates. When he closes his eyes, he can see the Old Testament flash before his eyes. But yet he'll take me for lunch and we will talk as friends. I sense some attempt at some mutuality. He actually took my idea seriously. So this young guy, young Chiku at 30, what is this prof of 2 PhD? And I think the friendship was genuine.
Okay.
On my part, I enjoyed the friendship with him, but I never forgot that he's the guy with the 2 doctorates. So how do we enjoy the intimacy that I think God desires, but still remember that He is God? He's not a dude or what. He's not my kawan, hello. That's why it's my Father, in heaven. The Father may speak of intimacy and connection. In heaven reminds me, this is not your regular dad, okay? This is the Father in heaven.
Yeah.
So I think we need God's help, and that's why it's good to go through the scriptures. I like going through the scriptures, going through all the key doctrines will correct us when we go astray one way or another, and hence my concern if it's purely topical sermons, the flavor of the year or whatever, then we tend to focus on one aspect of God or His work, then we may run the danger of losing this tension. I'm not saying there's no place for prophetic words. Sometimes God does speak a specific word to a specific time, and there are sermons of that sort. I'm not against that, but in the wider scheme of things, I think we need to go back to the whole counsel of God, and that will ensure that we do not swing too far one way or another, and retain this balance between a God who is transcendent and a God who is immanent.
Correct. And it helps in some sense to actually appreciate the friendship that we have, with that understanding that this friend who offers that friendship is that transcendent God that creates, that God that though He desires and He come down, He also don't have to do that, but it's a privilege that He extends to us, that I could be your friend.
Well, like the lecturer with 2 doctorates, he didn't have to spend time at lunch and invest time. So maybe the starting point is appreciating God's transcendence. Then when the immanence is offered, it even has more value. A God who is transcendent actually comes down to my level.
That's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
I will never take that for granted.
Exactly.
In fact, you inspire me to worship Him, to let Him transform me.
That's true. That's really good point. To also have a starting point and not just have an imagine this God to be like that, and therefore we make God into our own image. That this friend is like this, just on friendship level, and never get beyond that, because God has this different, many multifaceted, that He has shown to us. Okay.
But having said that, I want to acknowledge that maybe we do live in a very lonely society, and hence this wanting God to be my friend and dude could be an expression of that. So I don't want to be only negative about that. But end of the day, I mean, who is God lah? So we still have to come back to an accurate picture of God, who actually wants to be close to you. But let's get the real picture of God, not the God of our imagination.
The totality of it, right? Not just bits and pieces, what we
or
like.
what you think He should be.
Correct.
The God of our imagination.
That's good. Now let's talk a little bit about several books on spiritual friendship that you author. 2009, Spiritual Friendship. Oh, that's an earlier book, right? A primer.
Small one,
Yeah, and most recently, 321, Following Jesus in Trees. And of course, the most recent one, Walking with the Risen Christ, a primer for healthy small groups. Now, they were both written with hope to promote spiritual friendship in church and in society. I suppose your thoughts shared today shape some of the writings of these books. Would you share a little bit about your books with us?
In many ways, 321 I think would be the seminal book. So what 321, what is this? So I think often when I teach on spiritual friendship, that we need to invest time to connect with God and with each other. People will say, well, that's a great idea, but I have no time lah. This will be in KL or Singapore. Then I say, well, hey, hello, can you find 3 kawan, 3 friends, meeting 2 hours once a month over a meal? The meal part is important. 3 friends, 2 hours once a month over a meal. Then I think that one can be done lah. It's doable model for spiritual friendship, and it's a book that is very close to my heart, because I think maybe it's good to mention that studies have shown that Christians connect at 4 levels. First is at the large group level, like in our morning worship or revival meetings, whatever, huge people in auditorium. I think that kind of meeting is excellent for inspiration and instruction, but it's lousy for relationships. You're all in this huge room together, someone up there is speaking or leading in worship, but you cannot connect with your neighbor. You've got some problem, I've got this problem, worship going on. It's not good for this. So you may say, well, actually I'm dying later lah, after the worship. After worship, benediction, then we talk. By the time benediction, I will die already. So large group is good for inspiration and instruction, but I think in today's world we seem to be so enamored with the large group. Wow, fill the whole stadium, half of them got slain. But which is cool for inspiration and for instruction. But it's not good for the sharing of lives that is the basis of friendship. The second level, large group, is the social group. Social group to me is sharing a meal together. And so eating is very important in the Bible. And because eating represents relationship building. When we eat together in a meal, we slow down. We affirm our common humanity. I don't care, you PhD, no D, what, everybody got to eat. And we all need something outside ourselves to sustain us. We need food, we need Christ. So the second level of connecting is the social group. The third, and which I think in our churches will be things like the Alpha, welcome dinner, or our potluck, or if you are more holy, then it's pot bless, depending on the level of sanctification of your church. Then the third level is small group, what be the 12, and maybe our cell groups. And the fourth level is the intimate group, 2 or 3 very close friends where you hold nothing back. So large group, social group, small group, intimate group. And I think it's in the small group and the intimate group. And by the way, Jesus does all this. He speaks to the masses. There's some standing group called the 70. But then he ministers to the 12.
Yep.
And Peter, James and John.
Correct.
And so I think for each follower of Christ, I will ask them, how are you doing a relational audit? No? Are you having good, meaningful, large group meetings? Are you meeting with people over meals to begin building relationships? What's the quality of your cell group life? Do you have 1 or 2 close spiritual friends to walk with you? So I think, like I said, because we're busy and tired, we gravitate towards 1 and 2, the large group or the social grouping. But it is at level 3 and 4 that friendship actually happens, because it's face to face and we share our stories. Now, actually, I begin 3 to 1 by pointing out the fact that the first negative that we encounter in Bible, when you start the Bible and Old Testament, is good, 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 very good, all good. The first time you encounter a not good, it's not good for man to be alone. So it stands out because it's the first time you encounter a negative. I need to say that this is in chapter 2. There's no sin in the picture. Adam had perfect access to God. But clearly, not enough. That means we are created for 2 primary relationships, with God and with other human beings. So when we push for spiritual friendship, I think it's something which is fundamental to Christian life. It's not just some, you can hang, don't have, never mind one. I think it is something that is fundamental for our human life. So hence why I think in a very lonely and fast-paced society, where loneliness in society and the church, really to be the church, we need to ensure that our people are rooted in solid spiritual friendships.
How about the other book, The Walking with the Risen Christ?
Well, the 3 to 1 is the primary book, but I also realized that by now, most churches got cell group, or whatever equivalent, a life group, discipleship group. When I was young, all Sunday school, no such thing as small group. But yeah, it's true.
They don't have like care groups?
No. All done in Sunday school. Then there's the post-Lawrence Kong era. Our friend in Singapore and UMC and Daniel. Was the Daniel? And so now every church, I think, has cell groups or small groups. But what makes for a healthy small group? And the focus often would be on programs, on materials. My basic thesis is that a health group is healthy when it realizes that the risen Christ is in their midst. And if Christ is really in your midst, Christ is not just photobombing you at the back somewhere, Christ is actually in the center of your meeting. It actually impacts how your group functions. And so then it lays out practical ways in how a group can be a healthy, and it's, whatever program you use, this is still useful because it goes back to the point about how it's the presence of Christ, of the risen Christ in your midst, that makes the small group healthy.
Makes all the difference.
Makes all the difference.
If not, it's just going to be like any.
Talking about Christ behind his back, and then,
that's true. That's true. Now, to sum up today's discussion, also, if I would ask you, what is the biggest implication for the Christian life if we take seriously God's call to friendship? What will it be for you?
To do it,
Okay. To do it.
You cannot have a doctrine of spiritual friendship, but you actually got to be investing time in 1 or 2 close friends. Where hey, we meet up for lunch once a month. Let's keep check on each other's souls. So, good spiritual friends help each of us to be better friends of God. And really, to me, this is the very core of Christian existence. God is a relational God. Christian experience ought to be relational. And I'm just very burdened that this is not something that is really emphasized.
Yeah. Maybe not in our society, but even more needed right now.
Even more needed.
Correct. Would you share with us some of your, maybe some practical ways for our listener, for our audience? How do we then reclaim this friendship with Jesus in our 21st century, in a very performance-driven culture? Any practical ways that you yourself have found throughout the years in engaging with people?
I think the first has to be a paradigm shift in our thinking. If you really must believe that this is critical, like you need spiritual friends, like you need food and water. If you don't believe it is that critical, you wouldn't invest the energy and the effort to make it happen, because relationships are messy, they take time, and I don't romanticize friendship. Once you get to know each other well, we will rub off each other the wrong way.
True.
Now we would hurt each other. So I'm not trying to say that spiritual friendships are all warm and cozy. True friendships will go through difficult times. So for someone to stay the course on being committed to making spiritual friends, they must first believe that they need it. If they don't believe it, then it will soon hit some kind of wall and they will give up. But once you know that you need it, all this is mentioned in the book. Maybe it's great if you're a church leader, you want to see how this is implemented in your church. But if you're just somebody there, that's nothing to stop you from praying, God, show me 1 or 2 friends. I'll invite them to my home over a meal. Hey, hi guys, how about meeting once a month to check each other's souls? I think that sometimes many things happen at the ground level, not just waiting for somebody up there to tell you. It is great if it becomes a DNA of the church. I think that would be ideal. But I wouldn't want to wait for that. If you believe this is important, you pray for God to ask you to give you the names of 1 or 2 friends, invite them over a meal, say, hey, how about we share our lives and we journey together.
Okay. So, there you have it. I hope that you have found the discussion with Soo-Inn insightful. For me, it really adds weight to my understanding of the call to friendship with God and how now it should inform us on the way we treat friendship with one another. Want to know more about what Soo-Inn talks about in his books? Do visit Canaan Land to get these 2 books by Soo-Inn, Following Jesus in Trees and Walking with the Risen Christ. Have a blessed Good Friday and Easter Sunday. I'm Alexa Hall, your host. This is Safe Space.
God questions? Connect with us. Send us a tweet or an email.